War is a national crisis. It is necessary to examine the grounds of death and life and the ways to survival and extinction. Thus, you measure militias in terms of 5 parameters, comparing them in terms of strategic measurements to find out the real situation. First is guidance, second, climate, third is ground, fourth, leadership, fifth is order. Guidance is what induces popular accord with the rulership, so the people are willing to follow it to death and follow it in life without opposition. Climate refers to darkness and light, cold and heat, the structure of the seasons. Ground may be high or low, near or far, treacherous or easy, broad or narrow, deadly or viable. Leadership is a matter of knowledge, trustworthiness, humaneness, valor, and strictness. Order involves organizational structure, chain of command, and logistics. All leaders have heard of these 5 things. Those who know them prevail over those who do not. That is why we make comparisons in terms of strategic measurements to find out the real situation. Which civil leadership has guidance? Which military leadership has ability? Whose climate and grounds are advantageous? Whose order is enforced? Whose forces are stronger? Whose officers and soldiers are better trained? Whose rewards and punishments are clearer? In this way, I know who is going to win and who is going to lose. If leaders listen to my strategy, their military actions will be victorious. Then I will stay. If leaders do not listen to my strategy, their military actions will be failures. Then I will leave. One can assess advantages through listening, then take up an appropriate posture or make an appropriate disposition to bolster one's exterior. To take up a posture or a disposition means to manipulate strategy according to advantage. Warfare is a path of subterfuge. That is why you make a show of incompetence when you are actually competent. Make a show of ineffectiveness when you are in fact effective. When nearby, you appear to be distant, and when distant, you appear to be nearby. Seducing opponents with prospects of gain, take them over by means of confusion. Even when you're solid, still be on the defensive. Even when you're strong, be evasive. Use anger to make them upset, humility to make them arrogant. Tire them while taking it easy, cause division among them while acting friendly. Attack where they are unprepared, and emerge when they least expect it. This means that the victories of warriors cannot be told of beforehand. Those who figure out how to win before doing battle have the majority of advantageous plans, while those whose schemes prove to be failures, even before battle, have fewer advantageous plans. Those with many such plans win, those with few such plans lose. There's no need to even mention those with no plans. When I view a situation in this way, it becomes evident who will win and who will lose. A general rule for military operations calls for 1,000 chariots, 1,000 leather-covered wagons, 100,000 armored troops, and provisions for several hundred miles. Thus, internal and external expenses, including the needs of ambassadors and advisors, materials such as glue and liquor, maintenance of vehicles and armor, cost 1,000 pieces of gold a day. Only thus can you mobilize a force of 100,000 troops. In actual combat, what is important is to win. Go on too long and you blunt your troops and snap your edge. Besiege a citadel and your strength is depleted. Keep an army in the field too long and the resources of the nation will be insufficient. When you blunt your troops, snap your edge, deplete your strength, and exhaust your resources, rivals will arise to take advantage of your predicament. Then it will be impossible to effect a good ending, even with knowledge. Therefore, in military affairs, we may hear of being clumsy but swift, while we never see the skillful prolonging an action. This is because a nation never benefits from prolonging a military action. So those who are not completely aware of drawbacks of military action cannot be completely aware of advantages in military action. Those who use militias skillfully do not draft conscripts twice or ship provisions over and over. Taking necessities from the nation and feeding off opponents, the army can thus be sufficiently fed. The reason that nations are impoverished by their armies is that those who send their armies far away ship goods far away, and when goods are shipped far away, the farmers grow poor. Those who are near the army sell dear, and because of high prices, money runs out. When the money runs out, there is increased pressure to appropriate things for military use. Exhausting the heartland, draining the households, this takes up 70% of the peasant's expenses. As for the expenses of the government, the ruined chariots, the horses rendered useless, the armor and weaponry, the oxen and transport vehicles take up 60%. This is why a wise leader strives to feed off the enemy. The amount of the enemy's food you eat is equivalent to 20 times that amount of your own food. The amount of the enemy's fodder you use is equivalent to 20 times that amount of your own fodder. So what gets opponents killed is anger. What gets you the advantage over opponents is the spoils. Thus, in a chariot battle, when your side has captured at least 10 chariots, award them to the first to make a capture, change the flags, and use the chariots together with yours, treating the soldiers well and providing for them. This is called overcoming an opponent and growing even stronger. So in a military operation, what is important is to prevail. It is not good to prolong it. Thus, a leader who commands a militia knowledgeably has the fate of the people in their hands. The safety or danger of the nation is up to them. The general rule for military operations is that keeping a nation intact is best, while destroying a nation is next. Keeping a militia intact is best. Destroying a militia is next. Keeping a battalion intact is best. Destroying a battalion next. Keeping a company intact is best. Destroying a company is next. Keeping a squad intact is best. Destroying a squad is next. Therefore, 100% victory in battle is not the finest skill. Foiling others' military operations without even fighting is the finest skill. Thus, a superior military operation attacks planning. The next best attacks alliances. The next attacks armed forces. The lowest attacks citadels. The rule for attacking a citadel is that it is only done out of sheer necessity. It takes 3 months to prepare the equipment and another 3 months to construct earth mounds against the walls of the citadel. When a military leader cannot contain anger and has their soldiers swarm the citadel, this kills a third of their soldiers. With the citadel still not taken, this is a fiasco of a siege. Therefore, one who uses the military skillfully foils the military operations of others without fighting, takes others' citadels without attacking, and crushes other states without taking a long time, making sure to remain intact to contend with the world, so that their forces are not blunted, and the advantage can be complete. This is the rule for planning attack. So the rule for military operations is that if you outnumber opponents 10 to 1, then surround them. 5 to 1, attack them. 2 to 1, fight them. If you're evenly matched, you can divide them. If you're less, you can defend against them. If you're not as good, then you can evade them. Thus, what would be firmness in the face of a small opponent will get you captured by a large opponent. Military leaders are assistants of nations. When their assistants are thoroughgoing, nations will be strong. When their assistants are negligent, nations will be weak. So there are 3 ways in which a civilian leader troubles a militia. Calling on the militia to advance unaware that it should not advance at that point, or calling on the militia to retreat unaware that it should not retreat at that point, is called fettering the militia. Civil government participating in the running of the military without understanding military affairs leads to confusion among the soldiers. Civil government sharing the responsibilities of the military without understanding military strategy leads to mistrust among the soldiers. Once your military forces are confused and distrustful, rivals will give you trouble. This is called disorienting the military and bringing in conquerors. There are 5 ways to know winners. Those who know when to fight and when not to fight are winners. Those who know the uses of large and small groups are winners. Those whose upper and lower echelons have the same desires are winners. Those who await the unprepared with preparedness are winners. Those whose military leaders are capable and not dominated by the civilian leaders are winners. These 5 items are ways to know winners. So it is said that if you know others and know yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. If you do not know others but do know yourself, you will win some and lose some. If you do not know others and do not know yourself, you'll be imperiled in every battle. The ancients who were skilled in combat first became invincible, and in that condition awaited vulnerability on the part of enemies. Invincibility is up to you yourself. Vulnerability depends on the opponent. Therefore, those who are skilled in combat can become invincible, but cannot make opponents vulnerable to certain defeat. This is why it is said that victory can be discerned, but cannot be made. Invincibility is a matter of defense. Vulnerability is a matter of offense. When you defend, it is because you are outgunned. When you attack, it is because the opponent is no match. Those skilled at defense hide in the deepest depths of the earth. Those skilled at offense maneuver in the highest heights of the sky. Thus they can preserve themselves and make victory complete. Those whose perception of how to win is not beyond common knowledge are not the most skillful of experts. It doesn't take much strength to lift a strand of hair. It doesn't take clarity of eye to see the sun and moon. It doesn't take sharpness of ear to hear thunder. Those considered good warriors in ancient times were those who won when it was easy to win. Thus, the victories of good warriors have nothing extraordinary about them. They are not famed for brilliance, not accorded merit for bravado. Thus, their victories in battle are not in doubt. They are not in doubt because the measures they take are sure to win, since they are overcoming those who have already lost. Therefore, those who are skilled in combat take a stand on an invincible ground without losing sight of opponents' vulnerabilities. Thus, a victorious militia wins before ever seeking to do battle, while a defeated militia seeks victory after it has already gotten into a fight. When those who employ military forces put the way into practice and keep its laws, they can therefore judge the outcome. The laws are as follows. First is measure. Second is capacity. Third is order. Fourth is efficacy. Fifth is victory. The ground gives rise to measures. Measures produce capacity. Capacity gives rise to order. Order produces efficacy. Efficacy gives rise to victory. Thus, a victorious militia is like a weight balanced against another weight that is 500 times less, while a defeated militia is like a weight balanced against another weight that is 500 times greater. Those who get the people to fight from a winning position are as though opening up dammed waters into a mile-deep canyon. This is the matter of the formation of force. What normally makes managing a large group similar to managing a small group is a system of order. What makes fighting a large group similar to fighting a small group is the use of emblems and signals. What enables military forces to take on enemies without defeat is the implementation of surprise tactics as well as conventional strategies. What makes a military intervention as effective as a stone thrown on eggs is discernment of openings and solidity. Usually battle is engaged in a conventional manner, but is won by surprise tactics. So those who are good at surprise maneuvers are endless as the sky and earth, inexhaustible as the great rivers, finishing, then starting again, as epitomized by the sun and moon, dying and then being reborn, as epitomized by the four seasons. There are only 5 notes, but their various combinations are infinite. There are only 5 colors, but their various combinations are infinite. Combat dispositions are either conventional or extraordinary, but the various combinations of convention and surprise are endless. Surprise and convention give rise to each other in cycles, like a beginningless and endless circle. Who can exhaust them? The fact that the velocity of rushing water can reach the point where it can sweep away boulders is due to momentum. The fact that the strike of a bird of prey can attain a crushing force is due to timing and control. Thus, those skilled at combat make sure their momentum is closely channeled and their timing closely controlled. Their momentum is like drawing a catapult. Their timing and control are like pulling the trigger. In the midst of confusion, they fight wildly without being thrown into disarray. In the midst of chaos, their formations are versatile, so they cannot be defeated. Rebellion arises from orderliness. Cowardice arises from bravado. Weakness arises from strength. Whether there is order or unruliness depends on the operative logic of the order. Bravery and cowardice depend on the configurations and momentum of power. Strength and weakness depend on formation. Therefore, those who are good at maneuvering enemies mold them into specific formations, to which the enemies may be sure to conform. Give opponents an opportunity they are sure to take, maneuvering them in this way, then wait in ambush for them. For these reasons, those who are skilled in combat look to disposition of force and momentum. They do not put the onus on individual people. That is why they can choose people, yet put their trust in momentum. To rely on momentum is to get people to go into battle like rolling logs and rocks. By nature, logs and rocks remain still on even ground and roll when the ground is steep. They remain stationary when square. They roll when round. Thus, the momentum of people who are good at combat is like rolling round rocks down a high mountain, because of the disposition of force. Generally speaking, those who have taken up their position on a battlefield first and await the enemy there are fresh, while those who take up their position on a battlefield last and thus rush into combat are wearied. Therefore, skilled warriors bring others to them and do not go to others. What effectively induces enemies to come of their own accord is the prospect of gain. What effectively prevents enemies from coming is the threat of harm. So to effectively tire a rested enemy, starve a well-fed one, or stir up a calm one, is a matter of going where the enemy is sure to give chase. Those who travel hundreds of miles without fatigue can do so by traveling uninhabited lands. Those who always take what they besiege do so by attacking when there is no defense. Those whose defense always stands firm defend where attack is certain. Therefore, a good attack is one against which an enemy does not know where to defend, while a good defense is one against which an enemy does not know where to attack. Be subtle, subtle even to the point of formlessness. Be mysterious, mysterious even to the point of soundlessness. Thus you can control the enemy's fate. To advance unstoppably, strike at openings. To retreat elusively, move too fast for the enemy to catch up with you. Thus, when you want to fight, the way to let an enemy have no choice but to fight with you, even though he is secure behind high ramparts and deep moats, is to attack where they are sure to go to the rescue. When you don't want to fight, to make an enemy unable to fight with you, even if you are only defending a line drawn on the ground. Divert their aim. Thus, if you induce others to adopt a form while you remain formless, then you will be concentrated while the enemy will be divided. When you are concentrated and thus united, whereas the enemy is divided into 10, you are attacking with 10 times their strength. So you are a large contingent, while the enemy is in small groups. If you can attack small groups with a larger contingent, then you will have fewer to fight against at a time. Your battleground should be unknown, because if it is unknown, then the enemy will have to post many defensive positions. And when the enemy has to man many defensive positions, then you will have fewer people to fight against at a time. Thus, when they are manned in front, they are undermanned in the rear. When they are manned in the rear, they are undermanned in the front. When manned at the left, they are undermanned to the right. When manned at the right, they are undermanned to the left. When they are manned everywhere, they are undermanned everywhere. Those who are undermanned are those who are on the defensive against others. Those who have plenty of personnel are those who cause others to be on the defensive against them. Therefore, if you know the ground of combat and the day of combat, you can go to battle hundreds of miles away. If you do not know the ground of combat or the day of combat, then your left flank cannot help your right flank. Your right flank cannot help your left flank. Your forward wing cannot help your rear guard, and your rear guard cannot help your forward wing. How much less can they help each other when there is a distance of miles? According to my calculations, although the enemy has many troops, still that hardly increases their chances of victory. That is why I say victory can be achieved. Even if the enemy is numerous, they can be made to not fight. Thus, you plot against them to discern winning and losing strategies. You work on them to discern their patterns of action. You induce them to adopt specific formations to discern deadly and viable grounds. You skirmish with them to discern where they are sufficient and where they are lacking. So the consummate formation of a militia is to reach formlessness. Where there is no specific form, even deeply placed agents cannot spy it out. Even the canny strategist cannot scheme against it. When you plan victory for the masses based on formation, the masses cannot discern it. Everyone knows the form of your victory, but no one knows the form by which you achieved victory. This is why a victory in battle is not repeated. Adaptive formation is of endless scope. The formation of a militia is symbolized by water. Water travels away from higher places toward lower places. Military victory is a matter of avoiding the solid and striking at openings. The course of water is determined by earth. The way to military victory depends on the opponent. Thus, a militia has no permanently fixed configuration, no constant form. Those who are able to seize victory by adapting to opponents are called experts. No element is always dominant. No season is always present. Some days are shorter, some are longer. The moon wanes away and then reappears. The general rule for military operations is that the military leadership gets the order from the civilian leadership to assemble an army, gather troops, and mass at the front. Nothing is harder than armed struggle. The difficulty of armed struggle is making a circuitous route into the most direct way, turning problems into advantages. Thus, when you take a circuitous route, thereby leading on opponents with the prospect of gain, leaving after others but arriving before them, then you are the one who knows strategic use of circuitousness's directness. Thus, armed struggle can be profitable and can be perilous. If you mobilize the whole army to fight for the advantage, you will be too late. If you leave the army behind to fight for advantage, then equipment will be lost. Thus, if you rush off with your armor in storage, marching double time day and night to fight for advantage too far away, then your top command will be captured. The strongest will get there first, laggards later, and as a rule, only 1 in 10 will make it at all. If you struggle for advantage at a considerable distance, your vanguard commander will be felled, and as a rule, only half your force will ever get there. If you struggle for advantage at a somewhat lesser distance, then 2 out of 3 will get there. Therefore, an army will perish if it has no equipment, no food, or no reserves. So, those who do not know the plans of competitors cannot enter capably into preliminary negotiations. Those who do not know the lay of the land cannot maneuver a militia. Those who do not use local guides cannot gain the advantages of the terrain. Therefore, a military force stands on deceit and moves according to advantage. Division and combination are the means of adaptation. When it moves swiftly, it is like the wind. When it moves slowly, it is like a forest. When it raids, it is like fire. When it is still, it is like a mountain. Inscrutable as the darkness, it moves like thunder rumbling. To plunder an area, it distributes its troops. To broaden territory, it parcels out defense of the critical positions. Action is taken away after weighing strategy. The first side to know how to make strategic use of circuitous and direct routes is the one to win. This is a law of armed conflict. A classic on military order says, "Gongs and drums are used because words cannot be heard. Pennants and flags are used because soldiers cannot see each other." Thus, gongs and drums are mostly used in night combat, while pennants and flags are mostly used in day combat. Gongs, drums, pennants, and flags are means of unifying the people's eyes and ears. Once the people are unified, then the bold cannot push ahead alone, while the timid cannot fall back alone. This is the rule for employing a large group. Thus, the armed forces may have their spirit taken away, while the generals may have their heart taken away. In this connection, in the morning spirits are keen, in the afternoon spirits fade, in the evening spirits wane away. Therefore, good warriors avoid keen spirits, instead striking enemies when their spirits are fading and waning. This is the mastery of mood. To face confusion with composure and face clamor with calm is the mastery of heart. To stay close to home, to face those who come from far away. To face the weary in a condition of ease. To face the hungry with full stomachs is the mastery of strength. Not to stand in the way of an orderly march and not to attack an impeccable battle line is the mastery of adaptation. So, rulers for military operations are not to face high ground, not to get backed up against a hill, not to pursue a feigned retreat, not to attack fresh troops, not to chase after decoys, not to try to stop an army on the way home, to leave a way out for a surrounded army, and not to press a desperate enemy. These are the rules for military operations. Adapting to all changes. The general rule for military operations is that the military leadership gets the directive from the civilian leadership to assemble the army and mass the troops. Do not camp on rugged ground. Establish diplomatic relations on open, accessible ground. Do not tarry on isolated ground. Where you may be surrounded, plan ahead. Where the situation is deadly, fight. There are some roads that are not to be taken. There are some armies that are not to be attacked. There are some citadels that are not to be besieged. There are some territories that are not to be contested. There are some government directives that are not to be accepted. Therefore, military leaders who have mastered the advantages of comprehensive adaptation to changes are those who know how to command militias. If military leaders have not mastered the advantages of comprehensive adaptation to changes, then even if they know the lay of the land, they cannot take advantage of it. If they govern the military but do not know the art of adapting to all changes, even if they know of various advantages, they cannot get people to operate effectively. Therefore, the considerations of the wise include both profit and harm. Because they consider profit, their work is reliable. Because they consider harm, their problems can be resolved. So what inhibits competitors is the possibility of harm. What keeps competitors occupied is work. What sends competitors running is the prospect of gain. Thus, a rule of military action is not to depend on enemies not showing up, but rather rely on having means of dealing with them. Don't depend on enemies not attacking, but rather rely on having your own invulnerability. Thus, there are 5 dangers in military leaders. Those who will fight to the death can be killed. Those who are intent on survival can be captured. Those who are quick to anger are vulnerable to contempt. Purists are vulnerable to shame. Emotional humanitarians are vulnerable to anxiety. These 5 things are excesses in military leaders. They are disastrous for military operations. These 5 dangers are what overturn armies and kill commanders, so it is imperative to examine them. Maneuvering forces. Whenever you position your forces, size up your opponents. When you cut through mountains, keep to the valleys. Camp on high ground, looking toward the light, and don't fight uphill. This is how to maneuver in the mountains. When you cut across bodies of water, you must distance yourself from it. When invaders come across water, don't meet them in the water. Let half cross before you attack them, and you'll get the advantage. When you are going to do battle, do not meet invaders near water. Camp on high ground, looking toward the light, and do not face the current of a river. This is how to maneuver around bodies of water. When you cut through salt marshes, just hurry to get out as fast as you can without stopping at all. If you skirmish in a marsh, stick by the water and grasses with your back to clusters of trees. This is how to maneuver in marshland. On plains, take up your position in level spots with high ground to the right and the back, deadly ground in front, and viable ground behind. This is how to maneuver on level terrain. It was the advantage of these 4 ways of maneuvering that enabled the Yellow Emperor to overcome 4 rulers. Generally speaking, armies prefer high ground to low ground, sunlight to shade. Take care of their health and take up positions in places that can support you, so that the soldiers do not fall ill. This is considered the way to certain victory. When you come to hills or embankments, position yourself on the sunny side, keeping them to your right and your back. This is advantageous for battle, being helped by the lay of the land. When it rains upriver, the water will be frothing. Do not cross until it settles. Whenever you cut through a natural ravine, a natural enclosure, a natural prison, a natural trap, a natural pitfall, or a natural cleft, be sure to get out of there as soon as possible, because you should not be near them. I stay far away from them, so that the enemy is nearer to them than I. I face them, so that the enemy has his back to them. If there are canyons and ravines nearby the army, or ponds, reeds, mountain forests, or thickets, it is imperative to search them thoroughly, again and again, because these are places where ambushers and interlopers lurk. When enemies are nearby yet quiet, they are relying on a natural fastness. When they are far away yet provoking a fight, they want you to move forward. If they have occupied level ground, that is because it is advantageous. The movement of trees signals advance. Blinds in the undergrowth are there to mislead. Birds rising up signal bushwhackers. Animals being startled means someone is taking cover there. Dust running high and sharp signals chariots coming. Low and wide means infantry is coming. Scattered wisps mean firewood is being brought. If there is little dust and they are coming and going, that means they are setting up camp. Those who speak humbly yet increase their preparations are going to advance. Those who talk tough and move forward aggressively are going to withdraw. When light vehicles come forth first and stay by the flanks, they are setting out a battle line. Those who seek peace without a treaty are scheming. Those who rush around arraying forces are expecting reinforcements. Those who half advance and half retreat are trying to draw you in. When they brace themselves up as they stand, it means they are starving. When those whose job it is to draw water are the first to drink, it means they are thirsty. When they do not move on an obvious advantage, it means they are tired out. Birds gathering mean a place is deserted. Calls in the night indicate fear. Unrest among the troops means the commander is not respected. When signal pennants are disturbed, that means disorder. When emissaries are irritable, that means they're fatigued. When they feed their horses grain while they eat meat, when the troops have no canteens and do not return to camp, they are desperate. Murmurings, shirking, and whispering indicate loss of the group. Repetitious rewards signal an impasse. Repetitious punishments signal frustration. Those who are violent at first and then wind up fearing their people are inept in the extreme. Those who come in a conciliatory manner want to rest. When a militia confronts you angrily but puts off engagement and yet does not leave, you must watch carefully. A militia is not helped by large numbers, but by avoiding violent aggressiveness. It is enough to consolidate your strength, size up enemies, and win people. Only those who thoughtlessly slight opponents are sure to be captured by others. If soldiers are punished before an emotional bond with the leadership has formed, they will not be obedient, and if they are not obedient, they are hard to direct. If the soldiers have formed an emotional bond and penalties are not enforced, then they cannot be directed. So unite them culturally and unify them militarily. This is considered the way to win victory. When order is consistently practiced to educate the people, then the people are obedient. When order is not practiced consistently to educate the people, then the people are disobedient. When order is consistently practiced, that means it is effective for the group. The lay of the land. The lay of the land may offer no resistance, or it may hang you up, or it may get you into a standoff, or it may be constricting, or it may be precipitous, or it may be vast and far-flung. When you can go and opponents can come, that means the lay of the land offers no resistance. On land that offers no resistance, position yourself first on high sunny ground, where there are the best supply routes, and it is advantageous in case of a battle. When it is possible to go but hard to return, that means the lay of the land hangs you up. When the terrain causes hang-ups, you will win if you launch an attack on an unprepared enemy. But if you launch an attack against a prepared enemy and do not win, you will have trouble returning, to your disadvantage. When it is of no use for you to act, and it is of no use for your enemy to act, this is called a standoff. Where the lay of the land has you in a standoff, do not rise to any bait that the enemy might set forth. Withdraw instead, to lure the enemy half out, whereupon you can attack to your advantage. On constricting terrain, if you occupy it first, be sure to fill it up to await the enemy. If the enemy occupies it first, do not pursue if the enemy fills the narrows. Pursue if the enemy does not fill the narrows. On precipitous terrain, be sure to take up your position on a high and sunny place to await the enemy. If the enemy occupies it first, withdraw and leave, do not pursue. On far-flung terrain, when forces are equal and it is hard to start a fight, it is unprofitable to do battle. These are the 6 ways of adapting to the terrain, which is the ultimate responsibility of the commander and must be examined. So a militia may rush, may slack, may fall, may crumble, may be disorderly, or may be losers. These 6 are not natural disasters, they are the fault of the commanders. Those who have equal power, but who strike 10 with 1 are in a rush. When the soldiers are strong, but the officers are weak, there is slackness. When the officers are strong, but the soldiers are weak, they fall. When high officers are wrathful and uncontrollable, and when they encounter an enemy, they fight on their own out of resentment, and the commanders do not know their abilities. They crumble. When the commander is weak and not authoritative, instructions are not clear, officers and soldiers are inconstant, and battle lines are formed every which way. This is disorder. When the commanders are unable to assess enemies, take on many opponents with few troops, weakly attack stronger opponents, and have no special forces in their militias, they are losers. These are 6 ways to defeat. This is the ultimate responsibility of military commanders and must be examined. The lay of the land is a cooperating factor in a military operation. The way of superior commanders is to size up the enemy so as to ensure victory, assessing the qualities and dimensions of the terrain. Those who know this and use it in battle are sure winners. Those who do not know it and yet engage in combat are sure losers. Thus, if military science indicates certain victory, and yet the civilian leadership declares there shall be no fight, it is all right to insist on fighting. If military science indicates failure, and yet the civilian leadership calls for a fight, it is better not to fight. Therefore, military leaders who press forward without ambition for fame and retreat without trying to avoid blame, who only care for the security of the people and thus are in harmony with the interests of the civilian leadership, are treasures of the nation. Such leaders view their troops as babes in arms. That is why the troops are willing to enter deep valleys with them. They look upon their soldiers as beloved children. That is why they are willing to die with them. But if the leaders are so nice to the soldiers that they cannot command them, if they are so sentimental that they cannot enforce orders, if they let the soldiers misbehave and cannot govern them, as if they were spoiled children, then these leaders are not to be employed. If you know your soldiers are ready to strike and do not realize the enemy is not properly vulnerable, you have half a chance of succeeding. If you know the enemy is vulnerable to a strike, but do not realize your soldiers are not in proper condition to strike, you have half a chance of succeeding. If you know the enemy is vulnerable and your soldiers are ready to strike, and yet you do not realize the lay of the land militates against battle, you have half a chance of succeeding. So masters of military affairs move without confusion, mobilize without exhaustion. Thus it is said, knowing others and knowing yourself, victory will not be imperiled. By knowing the ground and knowing the climate, victory can be complete. 9 grounds. According to the laws of military operations, there is ground of disintegration, shallow ground, ground of contention, ground of intercourse, axial ground, deep ground, bad ground, surrounded ground, and ground of death. A ground of disintegration is where local powers fight amongst themselves on their own territory. Shallow ground is where you penetrate enemy territory, but not deeply. A ground of contention is one that would benefit you if you got it, and would also benefit your enemies if they got it. Ground of intercourse is that over which you can go and others can come. Axial ground is that which is surrounded on 3 sides by competing interests, and would enable the first to get it to win the world. Deep ground is when you penetrate enemy territory so far that many of their cities and towns are behind you. Bad ground is mountain forests, defiles, marshes, and places generally difficult of passage. Surrounded ground is where the way in is narrow and the way out is tortuous, So even in large numbers, you're vulnerable to attack by a small band. A ground of death is where you will live if you battle quickly, and die if you do not battle quickly. On a ground of disintegration, therefore, do not fight. On a shallow ground, do not halt. On a ground of contention, do not attack. On a ground of intercourse, do not get cut off. On axial ground, make alliances. On deep ground, plunder. On bad ground, keep going. On surrounded ground, plan ahead. On deadly ground, fight. Those known as skilled warriors of old could make it so enemies' vanguard and rear could not contact each other. Large and small contingents could not rely on each other. The high and low ranks would not help each other. The leadership and the followers could not control each other. Soldiers left and could not be reconvened, and troops were not orderly when assembled. When it was advantageous, they acted. Otherwise, they did not. It may be asked, how do you face an oncoming enemy who is massive and well-ordered? First, to deprive him of what he likes, and he will listen. The true condition of military action is that its essential factor is speed, taking advantage of others' shortcomings, going by unexpected routes, attacking unguarded spots. The general pattern of invasions is that deep penetration results in total concentration, such that defenders cannot win. Glean from rich fields, and the armed forces will be adequately fed. Be careful of their health and do not strain them. Consolidate energy and build up strength. In maneuvering troops, calculate strategy so as to be unpredictable. Put them where they have nowhere to go, and they will die before giving up. In the face of death, how can warriors not exert themselves to the utmost? When warriors are in extreme peril, they have no fear. When they have no way out, they are firm. When they have gotten in deeply, they stick to it. When they have no choice, they will fight. Thus they are watchful without being trained, enlist without being drafted, are won over without promises, are loyal without being forced. Prohibit soothsaying, eliminate what is dubious, and they will stay to the death. Our warriors have nothing extra, but not because they dislike goods. Their lives are up, but not because they dislike longevity. On the day the order is issued, the soldiers weep. Tears wet the chests of those who are sitting. Tears stream down the faces of those lying down. Cast into circumstances where they have no way out, however, they show legendary bravery. Thus, skillful military operations are like a swift serpent. Strike at the head, and the tail whips around to lash back. Strike at the tail, and the head whips around to lash back. Strike at the middle, and both head and tail whip around to lash back. It may be asked whether a militia can be made to be like that swift serpent. The answer is that it can. The people of Wu and the people of Yue dislike each other, but when they are in the same boat, they will help each other like right and left hands. So it is that tethered horses and buried wheels are not adequately reliable. The principle of order is to even out bravery, as though it were uniform. When firmness and flexibility are both successful, this is a matter of the pattern of the ground. Thus one who commands a militia skillfully achieved such cooperation that it is like commanding a single individual who has no choice. The affairs of military commanders are kept inscrutable by quiet calm, kept orderly by uprightness and correctness. They are able to keep the soldiers and officers in the dark, so the people will not know anything. They change their operations and revise their plans, so no one can discern them. They change where they are staying and take remote routes, so that no one can think ahead. When they lead the soldiers toward an aim, it is like climbing up to a high place and throwing away the ladder. When they lead them deep into the territory of competitors and unleash their energy, it's like herding sheep, who are driven this way and that without knowing where they are going. Mastering the armed forces and putting them in dangerous straits are called the business of generals. It is imperative to examine the variations in the terrain, the advantages in contraction or expansion, and the principles of human psychology. The general patterns of invasions is that they are concentrated when they penetrate deeply, diffuse when their penetration is shallow. When you campaign in foreign countries, that is to be on isolated ground. That which is accessible from all sides is called axial ground. A penetrating incursion is called deep ground, while a slight incursion is called shallow ground. That which is impassable behind and constricted ahead is surrounded ground. Where there is no way out is deadly ground. Therefore, on grounds of disintegration, I would unify their wills. On shallow grounds, I would keep them in touch. On grounds of contention, I would follow up quickly. On grounds of intercourse, I would make sure of my defenses. On axial grounds, I would solidify my alliances. On deep ground, I would ensure a continuous supply of food. On bad ground, I would forge ahead. On surrounded ground, I would stop the gaps. On deadly ground, I would show them there is no way to get out alive. So the psychology of warfare is to resist when surrounded, fight when there is no other choice, and go along in extremes. Thus it is that those who do not know the plans of competitors are incompetent to enter into preliminary negotiations. Those who do not know the lay of the land are incompetent to maneuver armed forces. And those who do not employ local guides are unable to take advantage of the ground. A militia that lacks knowledge of even one of these things is not the militia of an effective rulership. The militia of an effective rulership is such that when it attacks a large country, the citizens there will not rally, and when it threatens enemies, they can't even get their allies to join them. So if you do not set your communications in order throughout the world, and do not develop worldwide power, but try to intimidate opponents, relying on your own personal authority, the result will be that your strongholds can be taken, and your domain can be overthrown. Give out rewards that are not in the rules, and set forth orders that are not in the code, maneuvering the armed forces like employing a single individual. Get them going on concrete tasks without talking about it. Get them going after advantages without telling them of the dangers. Cast them into perdition and they will survive. Plunge them into deadly situations and then they will live. Only when people have fallen into danger do they have the ability to create the outcome. Therefore, the task of a military action is to unobtrusively deceive the minds of enemies. Herd enemies all in one direction, and you can kill the commander hundreds of miles away. This is considered skillful accomplishment of the task. So, on the day of mobilization, borders are closed and passports rescinded. Emissaries are not allowed to get through. The affair is treated with rigor at headquarters in order to execute the task. When the enemy presents an opening, be sure to penetrate at once. Preempt what the enemy prefers, secretly anticipating them. Act with discipline and adapt to the opposition in order to settle the contest. So at first you are like a virgin, to whom the enemy opens your door. Then you're like a jackrabbit on the loose, which the enemy cannot keep out. Fire assault. In general, there are 5 ways of using fire for offensive purposes. First is to burn human beings. Second is to burn stores. Third is to burn equipment. Fourth is to burn warehouses. Fifth is to burn squadrons. To set fires, you need the proper basis, and the proper basis requires elementary tools. There are seasons and days for setting fires. The seasons are when the weather is dry, and the days are when it is windy. In any fire assault, it is imperative to follow up on the crises caused by the 5 kinds of fire. When fire is set on the inside, follow it up quickly from the outside. When fire breaks out, if the soldiers remain calm, do not attack. Intensify the fire to extreme, then follow up if possible. Stop if not. If fires can be set outside, do not wait until you get inside. Set the fires when the timing is right. When the fires are set upwind, do not attack downwind. When wind persists through the day, it stops at night. In general, armed forces should know there are adaptations of the 5 kinds of fire assault and observe them scientifically. Thus, those who support an assault with fire are clear, while those who support an assault with water are strong. Water can be used to isolate, but not to pillage. To fail to reward the meritorious after victory in battle or a successful siege is ill-advised. It gets you the reputation of stinginess. So it is said that an enlightened leadership considers this, and a good commander carries it out. They do not mobilize when it is not advantageous, do not act when it is not productive, and do not fight when not imperiled. Rulers should not go to war in anger. Commanders should not battle out of wrath. Act when it is useful, otherwise do not. Anger can switch back to joy, wrath can switch back to delight. But a ruined country cannot be restored, and the dead cannot be revived. Therefore, intelligent rulers are prudent in these matters, and good commanders are alert to these facts. This is the way to keep the country safe and the armed forces intact. Employing secret agents. When you mobilize an army of 100,000 and go on a 1,000-mile expedition, the expenses of the commoners and the contributions of the government amount to 1,000 pieces of gold a day. There is internal and external disquiet. People collapse in the roads, and 700,000 families are unable to do their work. To hold out for years, in the struggle for one day's triumph, and yet be stingy with rewards and ignorant of the conditions of the enemy, is extremely inhumane. This is not the mark of a leader of people, a helper of a government, or a triumphant chief. So what enables intelligent rulers and good commanders to move in such a way as to overcome others and accomplish extraordinary achievements is advanced knowledge. Advanced knowledge cannot be obtained from supernatural beings, cannot be had by analogy, and cannot be found out by calculation. It must be obtained from people who know the enemy's condition. Thus, there are 5 ways of employing secret agents. There are local informers, inside agents, double agents, doomed agents, and agents who have to stay alive. When the 5 agents are operating simultaneously, and no one knows their routes, this is an effective organization of supreme value to a ruler. Local informants are agents recruited from among the local people. Inside agents are recruited from among others' officials. Double agents are recruited from among enemy spies. Doomed agents are those who are deliberately misinformed so that they will transmit misinformation to the enemy. Agents who have to stay alive are those who are to report back. Therefore, no one in the armed services is appreciated as much as the secret agent. No awards are richer than those given to secret agents. And no business is more secret than espionage. Only the wise can use secret agents. No one but the humane can employ secret agents. And none but the subtle can get the truth from secret agents. Subtle indeed, subtle indeed. Secret agents can be useful everywhere. When an item of intelligence is heard before it has been reported back by an agent, both agent and the one to whom it was told die. Whenever there is an armed force you want to attack, a citadel you want to besiege, or a person you want to kill, you must know first the identities of the defending commanders, their associates, their visitors, their gatekeepers, and their chamberlains. Make sure your agents find out all of this. You must find out enemy agents who have come to spy on you, so that you can bribe them and get them to your side, so that you can use them as double agents. The knowledge thus gained enables you to recruit and employ local informers and inside agents. The knowledge thus gained enables you to get doomed agents to report misinformation to the enemy. The knowledge thus gained enables you to employ agents who are to come back alive in a manner conforming to expectations. It is imperative for rulers to know about the 5 kinds of secret agents. This knowledge depends on double agents, so double agents should be treated well. Only enlightened rulers of wise commanders can use the highly intelligent as secret agents, and are then sure of great success. This is essential for military operations, the basis on which armed forces act.